All right. This one is about Peter walking on water and faith. So go to Matthew chapter 14, and we'll start at number 23. This whole scenario was after he fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, which could be 52, or 5 times 2 is 10. But he had fed them, and he healed the sick. Not just one little sentence. He's just, yeah, and he had compassion, he healed the sick. And then he fed 5,000. I look at that and going, not only did the miracle of healing their sick, but feeding them. But then he sent them away. He says, okay. So in verse 23, as soon as he had sent the multitude away, he went up into a mountain alone to pray. Now the mountain sometimes relates to heaven, like with Moses, the Mount Sinai, or the Transfiguration, where he took, Peter, James, and John up to the mountain for the Transfiguration. So he went alone to pray. And where did he send the disciples then? He sent the 5,000 away. Well, if you go to verse 22 of chapter 14, and straightway Jesus compelled his disciples to enter into a ship and go over before him while he sent the multitude away. So basically he said, okay guys, you go get in the ship and go across the sea. I'm going to go over here and tell these people to go away. Go home. I fed you and I healed you. Now go home. And then he sent the disciples into a ship to go before him. So they, got in the ship and said, okay, Jesus, we're going to go and we'll go over there while you're doing this. He commanded them to do it and they obeyed. That's called obedience. And faith, because it's like, okay, we're going to do what you told us to do. And he went to go pray in the mountain, to be alone with the Father. And what did he talk about? I don't know. It doesn't say. So in verse 24 of chapter 14, it says, and the ship was now in the midst of the sea. Now, a lot of times the sea can be multitudes of people, but you can read into it. But so it was in the midst of the sea, meaning it was the middle of the ocean, or middle of the sea, and was tossed with the waves. So it was having a storm, and the waves were kicking up, and the boat was getting tossed back and forth. It says, for it was contrary wind. So the wind was blowing it all over the place, and the waves were going everywhere. And the disciples were in the boat. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. Now the 4th watch, I remember he said something about, isn't there 4 months till harvest? The number 4 is important. There's 4 sides or 4 corners to the earth. There's also 4 sides to the throne. But we'll go on. So in the 4th watch, he went unto them walking on the sea. So here I am, just kind of walking on the sea. Now the sea had waves and the wind was blowing and he was still walking on it. So most people go, well, of course, he's the Son of God. He's God. He can walk on water. Now the laws of physics in the physical world say this is impossible. You cannot walk on water. There's insects that can walk on water because of surface tension, that they can spread their weight on the surface tension and not break it. But he was a man walking on water. He was also God walking on water. That's a miracle. And the disciples saw him walking on the sea, so they looked out from the boat, the waves and the wind and everything else, and they see him walking. And they were troubled, saying, it's a spirit, and cried out in fear. What would you think? You're in the middle of a storm, in the middle of a sea, and there's somebody walking there. They obviously couldn't see his face. That would freak out most people. Okay, but straight away, Jesus spake unto them, saying, be of good comfort. It is I, be not afraid. Now, he called out to them and said, hey, it's me, don't worry about it, right? Now, I'm reading from the Geneva Bible, which is from 1599, predates the King James, but I've read them both. I've got them both here in front of me, and they read the same. It is I, be not afraid. Now, I went to the Greek, and it reads a little different. I don't know why they changed it, because it says, it is I, be not afraid. So have comfort because he's here. Who's here? Because Jesus is here. Because he saw that they were afraid. But in the Greek, it reads differently. But immediately spoke Jesus to them, saying, be of good cheer, I am. Do not fear, and answered him. Okay, now this is kind of important because it says, be of good cheer. They both say, be of good comfort, be of good cheer. It's like, it's okay, calm down, everything will be all right. But one of them says, it is I. It is I. Okay. Which is kind of a reversal of saying, be of good cheer, I am. Why is it important that he said, I am? Well, when Moses was at the burning bush, and he goes, and the burning bush tells him to go tell the Jewish people, well, who do I say has sent me? He says, tell them that I am. Meaning what? I am. I exist. I wasn't created. I am here. So when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and they went with Judas to go capture him at night, which is illegal against the law, and Judas came over and gave him a kiss to identify who it was. And they said, who are you looking for? Jesus of Nazareth. And he says, in these other books, they say, I am he. Okay, they put the he. I am he. Okay, in the Greek, it also says, I am. Now, why did they want to stone or crucify Jesus? For blasphemy. Why? Because he said, I am. Now, the Jews know that when you say, I am, you are saying that you are God. They are one and the same. When you say, I am, it means you are God, the Creator, the Father, the everything. And he answered them 3 times, And on the 3rd time he said it, and this was in the Garden of Gethsemane, they all fell back, about 160 people or whatever. They all fell back and fell on the ground and got scared. Why? Because the voice of God said, I am. And that's why they want to crucify him. And the Noahide laws that are coming, the first one is, it's a blasphemy against God. So if you're a Christian and you say Jesus is the Son of God, in their eyes, you're saying that he is the I am. And under their laws, you will be beheaded for your testimony. So he says, I am. Okay? Then Peter answered him and said, Master, if it be thou. And in the Greek it says, Peter said, Lord, if thou art, command me to come to thee on the waters. Right? And it says, if thou art, bid me to come unto thee in the water. So Peter saw him. Did he have a little doubt? He says, if it be you, if it be thou, then you call me out on the water. If it's you, tell me to come to you. Now, most people say, I can see the wind, I can see the waves. I'm staying in the boat. where it's safe. So he stepped out. But he asked to be called out in the water. Call me to come to you. So the disciples didn't choose to go to Jesus and follow him. Although we can say from our point of view as a man, yes, we did. Yes, they did. But it was Jesus who called them. Many are called, few are chosen. So he says, bid me to come out on the waters. And so what does Jesus say? And he said, come. And when Peter was come out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. So what did Jesus say? After Peter said, if it's you, then call me out there so I can walk on the water. And Jesus said, come. Now in Revelations 20, chapter 22, it says what? The Holy Spirit and the bride and Jesus say, come. Same thing. Come to heaven, come to paradise, come be with us. So it's a command. Come. So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water to go to Jesus. That's another miracle. Okay, we know that Jesus is God. He's the Son of God and he can do miracles, and he fed 5,000 people and then he walked on the water. But here's Peter doing it, and he's a man. How could he do this? Because God called him and said, come? And he had the faith to step out of the ship? Where'd the faith come from? From Jesus, from God. He gave him the faith to walk on the water, and he did. How could he do it? Because he had his eyes fixed on Jesus, saying, you tell me to come, I'm coming to you. That's pretty good faith. But when he saw the mighty wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink. So he took his eyes off of Jesus and started looking around and going, oh crap, I'm in trouble. Remember, the waves were tossing the ship back and forth, and the winds were contrary, meaning they were blowing them this side and that side, even though the ship wanted to go straight. Not with these winds, right? So he took his eyes off of Jesus. He lost sight, began to sink. He started to lose faith. But what did he do when he started to lose faith? Did he go completely under the water? Did he drown? He cried out, saying, Master, save me. So he had faith. He stumbled. Then he turned and looked at Jesus and said, my Master, save me. First, he acknowledges that he's Master, right? And in the Greek, it says, Lord, save me. He saw the wind and he was afraid and beginning to sink. So it was fear. But he overcame his fear by calling out to the Lord, save me, Master, save me. I can't do this I can't do this without you. So immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him. So he stretched out his hand. So Peter was close enough that he could stretch out his hand and grab him. Did Jesus let him completely fall? Nope. So he stretched out his hand and he caught him and said to him, O thou little faith, why did you doubt? Little faith. And he doubted. But that little faith that he had was able for him to walk on water. Jesus said that if you had the faith of the mustard seed, you could tell a mountain to move and it would move. So then immediately as they came up into the ship, the wind ceased. The wind stopped. The waves stopped. Why? Because Jesus was there? Because this was all a test of Peter's faith? Can you trust me when I tell you to come to do what I ask out of faith? We walk by faith and not by sight. So now this is another miracle. Because not only did Jesus save him and they got into the boat, so now how far did Peter walk out of the boat? Don't know. Enough to get a few steps out, close enough to Jesus where he had to reach down and get him. And then what? Did he lift him up and then throw him in the boat? Or did they both walk back in the boat? Doesn't say. But when they got in the boat, the wind stopped. The waves stopped. And when they were in the ship and came and worshipped him, saying, "Oh, a truth thou art, Son of God." And this is chapter 14 of Matthew, verse 33. So the people in the boat, after they saw all these miracles, then they decided to worship him and proclaim that he is the Son of God. So, out of all of this that I see, we have to walk on water. We have to walk with faith. We have to trust Jesus. And if we start to stumble a little bit and we cry out to him, "Lord, save me," like Romans, whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Well, Peter was saved. Did he have to do any special rituals or anything kind of sacrifices? No. Just like the thief on the cross. One of them said, "Save me if you're the Christ," He didn't care. He was arrogant. And he wasn't remorseful of the things he did that was wrong. Bad, sin, disobedient. The other guy on the other side, which I think one was on the right and one was on the left, the goat and the sheep, in Revelations chapter 18 or 19, where it separates the goats from the sheep, and the goats, "I never knew you," but the sheep, "Enter into your rest and peace," So the other thief said, "I deserve this punishment, but you, Jesus, you're an innocent man. You don't deserve to be crucified. So forgive me. And remember me when you come into your paradise." And what did Jesus say? "Today you will be with me in paradise." Why? Because he asked for forgiveness. He repented. He was sorrow. He had sorrow, and he had faith to ask and believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that he would save him. And that day he did. So Peter had faith. So did the thief on the cross. He had faith that Jesus would save him and forgive him. The other guy, nope. Arrogance and pride, he was lost. So it's a choice. Yeah. Is there faith? Yeah. Is there belief? Absolutely. So what did they say? That Jesus is the Son of God. So I look at this and go, I see a whole bunch of miracles here. And Jesus can give us the faith, if we trust him, to walk on water. Jesus says that we will do greater miracles than what he did in the future. That's amazing. We'll fly like eagles. We'll run like the deer and not get tired. We're going to have glorified bodies. We will be able to bring in the harvest, because the harvest is great, but the workers are few. And what is the harvest? Souls. We are all fleshly bodies with souls inside. There's the mind, the body, and the spirit. And the spirit is what's important, because the spirit comes from God. Why? Because God is spirit. So there's a physical world with physical laws and limitations. But as you can see, Jesus was able to do miracles outside of the laws of gravity, of density, buoyancy. Why? Because he was God. He made the rules. He can break the rules. He can change the rules. He can follow the rules. They're his rules. Now we're limited to our physical state, our situation and what we're born into in the flesh. Well, it seems that with faith, belief, and the help of God, we're able to do his will and do things outside of these laws contrary, but only according to his will. So just like Peter chose to go out and meet Jesus on the water with faith, and the thief on the cross, so we need to have faith and walk in faith and trust every word that Jesus said, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by him. No other name is given under heaven by which a man can be saved except for the name of Jesus. Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Christ. He is the Savior. He is the Anointed One. He's the only way to get there. All the other religions and everything else, they all died. None of them came back from the dead, and resurrected, and ascended, because after he was resurrected, he was here for 40 days and witnessed to 500 people or more, and had a glorified body. And then he ascended. He was taken up into the heaven, into the clouds. And the angel said that he's going to return the same way. And that's our hope. He is going to come back in the clouds with our salvation. Because we're not saved yet. We're still in this fleshly body. There may have been spiritual changes inside of us, and the Holy Spirit lives in us, but we're still in a corruptible body. There's a glorified body waiting for you in heaven. It was created before the foundations of the world, and your name is written in the book of life. So, what do? Well, you admit you're a sinner and you screwed up. You believe that Jesus is the Son of God and he is the Christ, and he has died on the cross, shedding his blood so that you can be justified. He took on your sin, and so you could become sinless spiritually. And that your redemption is coming when he comes back. And it says that he will be glorified in us and we will be glorified in him. And it's kind of like when you take a fluorescent bulb and you put it next to an energy source or electrical source, it starts to glow. So, because it's gas and it's absorbing the energies. So, we will shine like him when he comes. So, you're admitting that he's the Son of God. You're believing in your heart, and you confess it with your mouth that he is Lord, because he did die and he did raise from the dead again. And if he was raised from the dead, then so will we, whether we're alive or dead. He'll bring us to him. And then we'll be with him forever. Where did he go? Well, he went to heaven and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, when he ascended into heaven. But he also said that in his Father's house there's many mansions. That could be many planets, many places. Who knows? There's so many dimensions or levels to God that we haven't even seen. We don't even know. He says that, he's making a place for us. And where he went, we can be there also. That sounds like a pretty good situation. And it's forever. To be with a loving God who cares about you, who put down his life so you could have life. So then, Romans 12, your reasonable service is to present your life as a living sacrifice, your body as a living sacrifice for him. How? By doing what he wants, by letting him do the Father's will through you. Instead of you trying to live your life, carnally, anything you can get in this life, food, houses, cars, whatever, stuff, gratifying yourself, whatever. It's all temporary. It doesn't last. That's why he says, where your heart is, so is your treasure. If you're focused on the heavens and spiritual things, then you're not focused on things here on earth, because it will all be burned up. When Jesus comes in the second coming, he comes with fire. Not only to punish the evil, but everything's going to get burned up, and he's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And you'll get to be there with him, if you choose to. So make good choices.